Good evening, everybody. I'm David Jones. I am the Sergeant of Arms, and traditionally we like to talk about things that happened in history today. And in 1983, on today, the Eiffel Tower welcomed its 150th millionth visitor. I guess they have somebody that counts how many people walk in there. And in 1979, the first recorded instance of a comet hitting the sun occurred. And that energy was equal to 1 million hydrobombs. So you don't want to be on the sun when the comet hits it. And in 1976, Tom Brokaw became the news anchor of Today's Show. Actually, I think he's still there giving reports. And for those on Zoom, Sean and all the guests, we do have a fruit fly problem. So we'll all be doing karate tonight. But other than that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our president, Elvis Lopez. So you could use that hat to hit some fruit flies. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, David, and good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. It is a pleasure for me to be here tonight. Welcome, everyone. Those who are online, I see Sean. I don't see any guests online, but there is a plethora of members and guests here tonight. To all of you, welcome to Queen City Toastmasters. For the guests that are tonight, we would like to start with the introduction as we do always. So please let us know your name, how did you hear about our club, and what is your interest in visiting a Toastmasters club? So I'm going to pass on the mic around for the benefit of those who are online. And if you can take it around and help me out, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Eric Laxer, VP of Education. And if you can, just tell us who you are and how you found our group or what you're looking for out of Toastmasters. Are you a guest?
Yes.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Safwa. I started coming about 3 years ago, and then I stopped for 3 years. So I want to dive back in and get comfortable speaking in front of people and just meeting new folks. So yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you. And Matt?
Well, I took my badge home, so I'm technically a member, but yet just looking to improve the group speaking skills. I'm good on one-on-one, but when you get more than like 5 people, you know, that's when it gets a little bit more nerve-wracking. So yeah, here I am. Oh, wait, sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Hutchinson. This is my 3rd Toastmasters, but I've only joined on Zoom. So this is my first in person. I actually live in the neighborhood and never knew this was where everyone met. And so I'm looking forward to improving my public speaking.
Okay, we're going to stay over here. And John, I'm not sure if your status has changed. Okay, congratulations. So unfortunately, you don't get the microphone now. And I'm not sure if Ali has changed. Okay, so then you do get the microphone. So here you go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Allie Brooke. I have been online a few times, and last week was my first week to come here. And I'm joining tonight. We just were working through, anyways, old school, new school, whatever.
Alan, would you like the microphone? Okay, thank you. And with that, I will give it back to Elvis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. And now I would like to introduce the Toastmaster who is going to lead us throughout this meeting. He is one of our officers currently our treasurer. He is the wonderful Toastmaster of the day. Please help me introducing Jamie Richardson. He didn't want me to do that, but
Thank you for the pregnant pause, Elvis, as I made my way to the stage. All right, greetings, fellow Toastmasters and guests. I am thrilled to be your Toastmaster of the evening tonight. Those of you who follow local news may have heard recently that our Charlotte City Council approved the Unified Development Ordinance, or the UDO for short. Now, think of the UDO as a rule book for commercial and residential developers that will guide what is built, where it's built, and what is preserved. Suffice to say, the UDO has been controversial. We are not, in fact, unified on the UDO as a city. But it was essential that a city the size of Charlotte, that's growing as fast as we are, had a uniform regulatory framework to guide development and guide growth. And we as a city are in fact growing very quickly. In 2021, 80 people moved to the city of Charlotte each and every day. Over 10,000 units of apartments were built in 2021 alone. And 5 million square feet of office space were brought online. To put that last number into context, that's the equivalent of 3 Bank of America towers. Built in 2021 alone, the most office space for any city in the entire country. So our theme tonight is to look at the 3 primary changes associated with the UDO, talk about what it means for us as Charlotteans, either if you live or work here, and the impacts for us. But my intent is to educate, not to advocate one way or the other in terms of those changes. The first change I'll touch on as we go through the meeting are rules on building multifamily units. The second is parking requirements, and the third is tree preservation. But first, let me introduce a few people that will help facilitate today's meeting. First, I would like to recognize our joke master and inspirational speaker, Toastmaster Junior.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honorable guests. As Jamie said, my name is Junior, and today I want to give you an inspirational thought. I want to share a quick story with you. When I first joined Toastmasters, I was so excited to start getting up here and signing up for roles. And when I joined, I went home and I signed up to be an inspirational thought, just as I'm doing right now. And I signed up 2 weeks in advance, but I completely forgot about it. Completely forgot about signing up. And when I left my house that day, 2 weeks later, to come here, my partner said, "Oh, good luck tonight. You're gonna give a speech." And I said, no, I don't think I did. I don't think I signed up. But if I do, whatever, I'll wing it. And I remember I sat right there in that seat when I came in that day. But the first thing I did was grab an agenda and I saw my name and my heart started racing. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't prepare anything. What am I gonna say? I started sweating and no one knew. I had a smile on my face. I almost had like a mini panic attack. So my first thought was get up and leave and make up some excuse if they come and say, "What happened? We saw you at the meeting." So as I was about to get up, another thought came to my mind. And I said, is this how you want to be remembered? Running away from your fears, from your anxiety? Is this who you want to be? So I got up, I went to the back and I got some water. That's why you see some water behind here, because I'm still nervous. I'm still anxious, right? I fight it every day. And 2 years ago, I started writing in a book, my thoughts every morning. And after that day, I wrote, I can't seem to fight the anxious feelings I get when doing something outside of my norm. Public speaking, conversations with a stranger, traveling to an unknown place. No matter where I go, there those feelings are. Instead of running away, I will face these feelings with love, compassion, and respect. I will own these feelings because they are mine. These feelings can be overcome with time, patience, and practice. What you go after, you get. So go after it.
Thank you, Junior. I think those are feelings that we can all resonate with. Our next presenter or our next facilitator is going to be our grammarian. So please join me in welcoming Toastmaster Elvis.
Excuse me just a second because I wanted to put this around. Maybe you can help me out, David?
I got a piece of paper.
Just so that everybody can see it. Okay. Can you see that word? All right. So as a grammarian, I will have two roles as part of these. Well, as part of the role, there are two parts of it. The first one is to present the word of the day. And why we do that? Because we need to continue building our vocabulary, right? So this word, how many of you have seen that word before or have heard that word before? Effulgence. Okay, great for you. I had never seen it before, so that's why I decided to pick that word. So what it means, effulgence means radiant splendor or brilliance. As an example, in a sentence, the state capitol's golden dome shone with brilliant effulgence in the late afternoon light. In another context, we could say, his oil portrait silently observed us. His brother Robert, who painted it, didn't go for the obvious choice and recreated Dad's life of the party effulgence. So again, it means radiant splendor or brilliance. And the challenge for all of us tonight, or everyone who speaks, is to use that word during your speech. I will be counting or taking into consideration who uses the word, including myself. And with effulgence, I will be doing the congratulations or the kudos at the end of the presentation. Now, the second part of this role is to count the use of the crutch words such as so, you know, right. And also I will be taking notes of the appropriate use of the language, appropriate expressions or things that were also used inappropriately. That's my role, and I will take it back to our Toastmaster tonight.
All right. Thank you, Toastmaster Elvis. Now I'd like to recognize our timer for this evening, Toastmaster Allen.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My name is Alan Assad. I am the effulgent president of Ballantine Toastmasters, which is actually where I met Satva 3 years ago and who inspired me to come visit us, or you all tonight. So nice to see you again, Satva. You don't remember that? Well, it's good to see you again. My job tonight that David was so nice enough to volunteer me to do is be the timer. And we have that state-of-the-art timing apparatus right on that table with 3 different light bulbs that will go off after a certain period of time. We have 2 icebreakers and 1 5 to 7 minute speech. The green light will go off after 4 and 5 minutes respectively, yellow at 5 and 6, and red at 6 and 7. Table topics are 1 to 2 minutes. So it'll be green light will come on at 1 minute, yellow at 1 minute and a half, and red at 2 minutes. And then the evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes. So each of those, the green light will come on after 2 minutes. Yellow will come on after 2.5, and the red light will come on after 3 minutes. And I will give my timers report after each segment. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So we don't have a ballot counter this evening. So as we go through our prepared speeches and our table topics and our evaluators, we will not be evaluating them, but still want you to give your full attention and support for all of our speakers tonight. So with that, I'd like to move to our featured speakers for this evening. And first off, we have Reginald Harris, Toastmaster Reggie, who will be delivering an icebreaker speech titled "Keep Pushing Forward" as part of the Dynamic Leadership Pathway. Please join me in welcoming Reggie.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jamie. Good evening, Toastmasters. My name is Reginald Harris. Again, like Jamie said, I'm going to be talking about keep pushing forward. It's a reflection of my life. So I'm born May 29th, 1973, which makes me 49 years old. By no stretch of the imagination do I feel young anymore. Plus, my knees remind me that I'm not young. But I'm from a small town, Hampton, Virginia, a town known for its seafood, a town known for its high school football, its military bases, and its beaches. I am the youngest of 13 kids. All of my siblings were so much more older than me. And when my parents had me, they had me further along in their age. We grew up in a 3-bedroom home. So as you can imagine, I came from humble beginnings. But I didn't really recognize that at that particular time, because at that age, at that young age, I thought I had everything because I had family all around. And at that particular time, I grew real attached to my dad. We did everything together. He took me fishing. We went camping together. We went on trips together. He taught me how to ride a bike, got me involved in the church and church plays. And I can still hear my mom saying that, "Jimmy, that's my baby. Don't you get that boy in football. I don't want him to get hurt." So what my dad did is he took me to go see my brothers play. And when he did, that was it. I was like, I'm hooked. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play football. And I did, to a very high level. So I began playing in the recreational leagues, and I developed my skills. And I knew that playing, it just really excited my dad. It made him really, really happy. Keep pushing forward. But things will begin to change. When I turned 13 years old, my dad became sick, and he could no longer do the things that he used to do for me when I was younger. And eventually shortly after that, he would pass away. At that time, all of my siblings started moving out of the house. My mom, she would get remarried. I just kind of lost my way. I really did. I struggled in school, not because I wasn't smart. It's because I didn't apply myself. I started having problems with my behavior. I didn't have any goals. The only thing that I thought that I could do was play football. And I did that at a high level. And so I made it all the way up to my 12th grade year, and my behavior and character started catching up with me. I started breaking team rules, and what happened was I got put off the football team. Guys, I was embarrassed, humiliated. So 2 days later, I said, I'm done, I quit. So I quit school. And over the next couple of months, I didn't do anything. I just drifted. I said, I got to do something. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna go get me a job, and I got a job delivering pizzas. And I worked that job for maybe about a few weeks. And I asked myself, I said, is this what you want your life to be, Reggie? And I determined no. I said, you know what? Let me try to get back into my former high school and see if I can get my diploma. I was denied. I said, you know what? Okay, let me go try to get my GED. So I went to this school called Buckrow Skills Center. This was a place that housed all the bad kids, so they would say. And I went there, and I was greeted by a man by the name of Mr. Ben Rich, who was the principal of the school. We didn't know each other. He was like, "What are you here to do, son?" I said, I'm here to get my GED. So he interviewed me, he talked to me, he sat me down, he did his research, and I guess he determined, he was like, hey, this isn't a bad kid. So the next thing he did surprised me. He put me in his car, this in the middle of the day. He leaves his school, put me in his car, take me across town to a place called New Horizons Technical Center. And he exposed me to a variety of different careers. He said, pick one, son. I picked dental because the class was full of girls. But for the first time, I applied myself. I had a great instructor and I got straight A's in the class. The other half of the day, he had me aligned to a community college where I would meet general study courses so that I could get my diploma. And I don't know how he was able to do it, but he arranged for me to walk across the stage with my former school and get my diploma. Keep pushing forward. So after that, I go into the military, and it was there where I started to develop my character. I started to mature, and I would eventually meet my wife there. We would have 3 beautiful kids. We get out of the military, we moved to Charlotte, and that particular time in my life, I worked a variety of different jobs. Nobody in my family ever got their degree. So I said, I'm gonna be the first. So I started taking night classes, and it seemed like it took forever, but I got my bachelor's degree. Then after that, I enrolled in the master's program. Then I got my master's degree, but something kept coming back to me, and that was the sport of football. Surely I couldn't play anymore, but I thought maybe I could coach. So I got me a volunteer assistant coaching job at Independence High School under legendary coach Tom Knotts. And I said, Coach, if you want me to continue coaching, I'm gonna need me a job. So he got me an education. And when he got me in education, it was there where I realized that I had something. I was able to impact kids. I was able to help them get internships, job shadowing opportunities. I was able to help them get into college through the Career and College Promise program for free. I was able to do all these things. So in essence, when I look back at it, I was paying it forward, and I was doing the same thing that Mr. Rich did for me. So guys, the moral of this story is, it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from or what life deals you. Like our Toastmaster brother, Junior Gomez, said a couple of weeks ago, please keep the faith, believe in yourself, and no matter what, keep pushing forward.
Reggie. Fantastic job, Reggie. Very inspirational. And I neglected to mention that for Toastmaster, for icebreaker speeches, what we like to do is all do a standing ovation for folks who are setting off on that journey together. Our next speaker is also delivering their icebreaker speech tonight. It is titled Leaning into Uncertainty, and it's part of the Dynamic Leadership Pathway. So please join me in welcoming Toastmaster Leon.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honorable guests. On the road to pursuing your highest hopes and ambitions, you'll be faced with moments of uncertainty that will try to stop you from going after the things that really make you feel fulfilled in life. If you've ever experienced that and you're joining us online, I'd like for you to type "I have" in the chat, or if you're here in person, I'd like for you to raise your hand, because I sure enough know that I have. So today I would like to share a story with you about what life can be like when you lean into your moments of uncertainty in hopes that you gain a piece of inspiration today. This story starts off with me being in my final year of college. I'm going through what I believe to be a quarter-life crisis and dealing with the pressures of what I was going to do after I graduated college. When uncertainty gave me a phone call to let me know that my mother was in the hospital because her cancer had came back for the 3rd time. And within no time, I had graduated from school and moved back home to be greeted by a frail but yet beautiful woman that I knew as my mother. And uncertainty began to reveal to me just how little control we have over some of the life circumstances that we find ourselves in. But what's most important is how we lean into those moments of uncertainty and show up for them. And so as I began to lean into these moments of uncertainty, I began to take on a full-time caregiving role for my mother. And during that time, it most certainly taught me how to truly love and care for something and someone outside myself. It was also opening me up and grounding me to the present moment so that I could really experience all that this opportunity that I found myself in to present me with. And as days became nights and nights became days, as bills began to pile up, as stress began to accumulate, as time went on November 3rd of 2017, my mother took her last breath. And on that day, I began to also have a realization that meanwhile my mother was going through a transition, I was going through a transformation. So I began to make promises to myself that I was going to actively find and discover myself, share more of me with the world, and prioritize my own happiness and fulfillment. And as I reflected on the experience that I just found myself in, I also realized that uncertainty sometimes visits us so that it can break us down and open us up so that we can fully receive the wisdoms and blessings that come in the next phases of our journey. And as I lean forward into the uncertainties of next phases of my journey, through those promises that I mentioned to you all, I decided to pursue a lifelong dream of mine. See, I've always wanted to get to know this planet more and the people that I share it with. So I began to sell anything that I can get my hands on, pack one bag, and bought a one-way ticket where I spent the next 14 months backpacking across Europe, Panama, and South America. And on that journey, uncertainty began to teach me so many things. And today I would like to share some of those things with you. One of the first things that it began to share with me is that in life, you can never truly find yourself because you're never really lost to begin with. See, it's our job for us to define who we want to be in this lifetime. Also, it began to teach me how to very surrender to the present moment so that I can allow all possibilities and potential to shine through me and to also use my light as an inspiration for others. Also, uncertainty was teaching me that there's 1,200 steps to get to the top of Machu Picchu, where the air is so thin that you're going to wish that you're in heaven. And that's why I call that hike the stairway to heaven. But as you can imagine, uncertainty brought me in front of so many other natural wonders, whether if it was Iguazu Falls, one of the world's largest waterfalls that sits between Brazil and Argentina, or whether if it was seeing the Milky Way for the first time in the jungles of Iquitos, Peru, or listening to humpback whales sing songs of joy as they birth new life into existence off the coast of Panama. And as uncertainty brought me in front of all of these natural wonders, it also afforded me a piece of wisdom. See, all of these things that left me in awe and had all this awesomeness to it, I began to realize that this awesomeness also lives in me. And I'm here to say that it lives in you as well. And when you begin to understand this, the heavens begin to open up in your mind and joy begins to bleed into your heart and your intuition begins to align itself with your highest passions and purpose, and life begins to take on a whole new meaning. Now, as this trip was coming to an end and I further leaned into uncertainty, I had yet to really figure out what I was going to do with myself when I returned home. But through a conversation with a friend of mine, I was introduced to a profession in which I knew nothing about called life coaching. So when I returned home, my curiosity took flight, and before I knew it, I was a certified professional coach from one of the top institutions out there. And I even picked up the dream of becoming an internationally known inspirational speaker. And now here is where our stories collide. Now, if there's anything that you take away from the story, I want it to be three things. One, no matter how young or old you are, and I want you to write this down or type this down wherever you can, through the tragedy of losing a loved one can also bring about a renewedness in life. And I'll say that again. Through the tragedies of losing a loved one can also bring about a renewedness in life. Two, whenever you find yourself in moments of uncertainty, to lean into it and allow it not to define who you are, but allow it to reveal to you who you really are. And then three, give thanks. And with that being said, I'd like to give thanks to my fellow Toastmasters and honorable guests for allowing me to share my story with you all. So now it could become our story of inspiration to help you all whenever you find yourself in moments of uncertainty. Thank you.
Great job, Leon. Talk about a journey, both personal and physical, right, around the world. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. Our third and last speaker tonight is Toastmaster Dr. Eric Laxer. He is delivering a toast as part of the presentation mastery pathway. That'll be a little bit longer from a timing perspective than our normal icebreaker speeches, or even our normal speeches, I guess, for that matter. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Laxer.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jamie. And just if you think you've heard this before, you have, because I gave it last week. And you won't have to hear it next week because my daughter's wedding is this weekend. And if I'm looking in certain points of the room, it's because that's where people I'm talking to are going to be sitting. So I apologize for that little preamble, but thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Laxer, known to many of you as Judy's husband and to some of you as Caitlin and Shim's father. And tonight I also have the honor of being known to you all as father of the bride. On behalf of my wife and Adam's parents, Michael and Lori, I'm delighted to welcome you to our exciting evening tonight, the wedding of Caitlin and Adam. We are blessed to have all of you here as our guests, some of whom have come from across the country, and others, including our family and friends who have come here all the way from Canada. We are delighted that you could join us and enhance our celebration. And at happy occasions like this, it's also important that we remember other family members who could not be here with us tonight. Of course, I am referring to Ruby, Caitlin and Adam's King Charles Cavalier, and Carl, Shim and Panima's bunny. We miss them dearly. Michael and Lori, the gift of your friendship has been an incredible outcome of Caitlin and Adam's relationship. Judy and I are very, very thankful for that. If there was some sort of app like Match.com or Tinder or whatever out there that could bring potential in-laws who would become good friends together, you guys would be at the top of our list. Judy, you have done an amazing job putting this evening together. Not only are you so smart and so beautiful, but you are the greatest multitasker I have ever met. You are full of effulgence. Caitlin, you showed up January 30th, 1992. It was a cold winter night in Montreal, and around 5 o'clock in the evening, I was doing sign out with my fellow residents when I got a message. The message read, "Call your wife. Important." I knew immediately that mom wanted to tell me one of two things. Either Wayne Gretzky had just gotten traded to the Montreal Canadiens, or she was in labor. And of course, she was in labor. Now, I was scheduled to take call that weekend, and my co-resident, Gary Schmidt, was going to be my backup and now had to step in for me for the weekend. When I got off the phone, I had this really excited look on my face, and all I remember Gary saying to me was, "Oh, crap." I made it out of the hospital and got mom to the hospital on time, and shortly after we arrived, so did you. It has been an amazing experience watching you become this intelligent, beautiful, and strong young woman, and tonight, a beautiful bride. When you introduced us to Adam, we knew immediately that you guys were special together. Adam, you are kind and warm with a heart that knows only friendship. You are a perfect match for Caitlin. And Judy and I have had many firsts with you in our lives. The first time we met you, the first time we had dinner together and met your family and others. But tonight is really special because for the first time, we can refer to you as our son-in-law. We could not be happier with Caitlin's choice for a life partner. Now, Adam, one of the things you don't know about Caitlin is that she comes with instructions like a chia plant. And let me go over a few of those instructions with you tonight. Are you ready? Instruction number 1, make sure Caitlin gets enough food. The good news is she will eat just about anything. We knew this about her from a very young age. When she was about 3 years old, her brother Shim, mom, and I were sitting in the kitchen, When she came walking in, she was wearing her pink little Ariel nightgown and her oversized white cowboy boots that she would drag on the floor as she walked across the room, kind of like this. Her brother was eating something that wasn't particularly good, and he called her over and said to her, "Caitlin, this is disgusting. Can you please put it in the garbage?" She took it from her brother's hand. She smelled it, and she said to him, "Can I eat it?" And she did. To this day, we're not sure what that was. Instruction number 2, make sure Caitlin gets enough sleep. The good news is that she will sleep just about anywhere, except when she was younger, not necessarily in a house that didn't also contain her mother, Judy. She would get invited to friends' houses for sleepovers like Laura and Rachel. She would be very excited about going there. But then at 10 o'clock at night, I would get a phone call. Caitlin had a tummy ache. And I would drive over, pick her up, take her back home to mom, and her tummy ache would disappear. But she seemed to have outgrown this. She went away to college. She lived in South Carolina for a few years, Chapel Hill, and then Ohio. But now she's been living back at home with Judy for the past 14 months or so. So I am concerned that she might have a relapse. So Adam, if Caitlin ever says to you around 10 o'clock at night, "Adam, I think I have a tummy ache. I want you to call me. I will come over and pick her up, and I will take her home to Judy." Instruction number 3, make sure Caitlin gets a lot of love. Just give her as much love and kisses as she gives Ruby. The good news is the love you give to Caitlin, you will get back from her 1,000-fold. Let me conclude with the following. When we walked through the house that you eventually purchased, a sign above one of the doorways belonging to the previous owners caught my attention. It read, "It doesn't matter where life takes you. What matters is who you have beside you." And I think this simple sentence sums up life, marriage, and relationships maybe better than anything I can think of. Because what matters is who you have beside you when you experience life's joyful and happy moments, and who you have beside you when you experience those moments you want to capture in time and hold on to forever, and who you have beside you when the road in life gets a little bumpy. That's what really counts. So now I ask everyone to please stand. Raise your glasses. Caitlin and Adam, I wish you a life filled with many joyous and happy occasions, many moments you can capture in time and hold on to forever, and that you experience all of those moments with each other always by your side. Please, everybody, say after me in a loud and exciting voice, cheers. Cheers. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Eric. So Eric, are you gonna have a videographer for the wedding? If not, we got you now. So you can make sure your daughter gets a copy of this later. All right, let me invite our timer up for a timer's report on our speakers.
All right, everyone overall did well on time. Reginald's icebreaker was 6 minutes and 27 seconds. Leon's icebreaker was 5 minutes and 44 seconds. And Eric was just a little overzealous, and his speech was 8 minutes and 42 seconds. Thank you.
All right. So the first change that's coming about from the UDO that I want to touch on relates to the development of multifamily housing. So under the old zoning rules, you couldn't build duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes in certain neighborhoods. And that started about the 40s or the 50s. In older neighborhoods like Elizabeth or Dilworth, if you've been around there, that were established in the 1920s, those kinds of housing stock were permissible. And at the time, it made sense. You had smaller families, you had individuals who wanted to be close to the old streetcar lines. But as those zoning rules changed, people became increasingly resistant to see that kind of development. So one of the things that the UDO is going to do is permit that. Proponents of the rule say that it will allow for more supply and different types of housing stock that don't exist in Charlotte today. And that will help with affordability, and it will help with more supply to offset what we have as some pretty severe demand challenges in the Charlotte area. Opponents of the rule think that it'll be damaging potentially to single family neighborhoods. And specifically what they're worried about is gentrification, that you'll start to see older single family homes torn down and replaced with expensive duplexes because developers can make more money on that kind of development. Suffice to say, though, we probably won't know the impact of this particular rule for a number of years. It's only going to apply retroactively. It's only going to apply in certain neighborhoods. And so the truth of the matter is still out there for us to discover. With that, I'd like to move to our table topics portion of the meeting. And we have online Sean, Toastmaster Sean, who will be facilitating our table topics. Please join me in welcoming Sean.
Thank you, Toastmaster of the day. Hello, fellow Toastmasters, honorable guests. The questions I have this evening will revolve around the city of Charlotte and kind of the UDO that Jamie has been talking about. Now, I've lived, before I get to my first question, do we have any volunteers? Either from the audience there virtually? Okay. I see a hand that's raised up. Could someone help me?
Yes, we have one volunteer. John is here to volunteer.
Thank you, Jamie. John, your question. I've lived in Charlotte now for over 2 years, and I'm impressed with the city, the schools, parks, and so much more. But there's always room for improvement. If you had the chance to change anything about Charlotte, what would it be?
That's a really good question. Thank you, Toastmaster Sean, and thank you, Toastmasters and honorable guest. I've lived outside of Charlotte most of my life in a small town called Gastonia. And there's really not much there. As soon as I had a car, I was in Charlotte. So I've been in Charlotte for a very long time. And the one thing that I can say that is probably the biggest thing for improvement in Charlotte would be public transportation. I think everyone can probably agree on that. Charlotte's one of the biggest cities that does not have adequate public transportation. You think about cities like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, you don't need a car. You can hop on a bus, train, wherever, and get where you need to go. And Charlotte is one of the cities that it's very spread apart, and you really need a car to actually travel and get around. If not, you're kind of limited with the light rail or the housing system or the busing system, excuse me. So I believe in the future, I think that they are going to be building on public transportation. I think that will be something that as Charlotte grows, I believe that will be something that can definitely I think that they will build that adequately, and I believe that they will add a little bit of effulgence to the system. So thank you so much for the question.
Thank you, John. Thank you for teeing up my next change as well, and we'll come back to that. Do we have another volunteer? Or Sean, do you want to find folks online?
Anybody online? Anybody in person? Just raise your hand.
Eugene. Eugene is going to volunteer next, Sean.
Fantastic. Thank you, Eugene. Eugene, your question. To plan for the future, Charlotte has a comprehensive plan for the year 2040. The city is expected to increase its population by 385,000. As the city grows, we have to think about ways to improve our transportation, as John was just mentioning. Given the abundance of scooters, rideshare, light rail, and possibly autonomous vehicles by that time, how would you improve Charlotte's transportation?
Thank you, Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and honorable guests. I think John actually answered this question, as you mentioned before, by providing more public transportation in the form of the light rail system, I think is going to be the best way to answer that question, honestly. Right now, I think it only travels east to west and north to south. The two rails, one that goes into South Side and the other that goes back into UNC Charlotte. And then there's the streetcar, exactly, the streetcar that goes east to west. And so you have those two options, and that's a limited option. I think having one that travels around the entire city, uptown, in addition to traveling up into the Huntersville area, back down into maybe as far as Rock Hill, and then even Gastonia. Some of these are some plans that I think I've seen before, and I think that would really help to expand the transportation opportunities that you have in Charlotte. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other volunteers? Got one in the back. Welcome, Andrea.
Go for it.
Andrea, staying on this topic of cities, transportation, and much more, given the other cities that you've visited, other than Charlotte, what is your favorite city that you've gone to and which you think has the best transportation and the best amenities for the city? So what would your favorite city be other than the Queen City?
That's a hard question for me. Thank you for that question. As many may know, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I grew up there, and then I moved to New York, and I moved to Charlotte, moved back to Detroit, moved to New York, then moved back to Charlotte. And so I've seen a lot of different cities. So my favorite city would have to be hometown. I'm on my way back there for my birthday, and I'm looking forward to just engulfing. And I'm gonna tell you why it's my favorite city. And Charlotte is one of my home. I call myself Tri-City home. It's wherever the people that love me are. And the people that originally loved me are in Detroit. My uncle, who I call Uncle Daddy, because he stood in for my dad, he's there. And then Albany is still home. Albany, New York is still home. Because when I went back there in August, the first thing people did was grab me in their arms and give me a hug. When I come back to Charlotte, the first thing you guys do is grab me in your arms and give me a hug. So I can't really say that I have one favorite city, but my favorite city is wherever those who love me reside. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more, Sean.
Anybody online or in person?
All right, we have one. One of our newest members, Toastmaster Heather.
Toastmaster Heather, do you prefer living in the country or in the city?
Actually, that's a very relevant question because I battle with that every day. I've lived in Charlotte for almost 14 years now, and I'm in South Park area. And although I love my townhome because I feel like I'm kind of nestled in the country. So I have the best of both worlds a bit. I love Charlotte. I love traveling to big cities. Enjoying the culture, all the events that you can take part in a big city. But then I'm going to the quiet place in a couple weekends with my dad, where there will be just immersed in nature and just enjoying just the natural beauty. So, but I do have both sides, so it's really hard to pick. So I think it depends on the day. But I think for now, I'm trying to embrace Charlotte and enjoying that's why I'm taking part in Toastmasters and getting out and enjoying community more, because I feel like I have been a little bit isolated and loving the city more. So I'm going to pick the city today.
Thank you very much. Jamie, back to you.
All right. So let's get a timers report on our table topic speakers. Welcome back, Alan.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, everyone did really well on their time. Eugene's speech was 1 minute and 3 seconds. Andrea's speech was 1 minute and 18 seconds. Heather's speech was 1 minute and 14 seconds. And John, if you noticed, about a minute into your speech, I did this. I forgot to start the timer, but I'm sure you were around the same time, so good job.
The 1 minute shrug. That's what gives it away. All right, our second change that I want to talk about actually gets to public transportation, which we just talked about. Thank you, Sean, for the excellent questions. Anyone can look at Charlotte and see all the parking lots that we got all over uptown on some of the most expensive land in the Southeast and know that we are a car city. So the UDO just passed a new rule, though, which might make some changes to that. So under old zoning rules, there were what were called parking minimums. So if you built a new commercial development or you built a new apartment building, there were a minimum number of parking spaces that had to be there for each and every unit or for a certain number of square feet. So think 2 to 3 parking spaces for each and every 2-bedroom apartment. Under the new rules, however, not only will they be reducing parking minimums, but they'll actually be putting in place parking maximums for the first time, which actually restrict the number of parking spaces that are available. Again, proponents like this because it'll help drive more interest and usage of public transportation, as well as improve walkability. If you think about those sea of parking lots, now instead you walk right into an apartment or into a retail shop. Opponents of it say, though, that's not what people want. There's no demand for apartments with no parking spaces available to them. So it'll discourage development, as well as it'll potentially be negative for nearby neighborhoods that will spill parking overflow parking into residential streets. Again, that rule only applies to new development, not retroactively to existing development. So we may not know the answer to that for many years. The third change that I wanted to highlight relates to tree preservation, what's called heritage trees. Those are the ones that are about 30 inches in diameter or more, will now be protected all over the city. So commercial development, even residential homeowners will be prevented from cutting those down without a permit from the city. And you'll actually have to plant replacement trees for those that you cut down. Now, proponents say this helps protect the tree canopy associated with Charlotte, and they point to statistics like in 2012, 49% of land area in Charlotte was covered with trees. In 2018, that reduced to 46%, 45%. And so as we think about the role of trees, what they would point to is the shade that we get to them and the protecting us from the sun's effulgence. Opponents of it, again, point to cost. So if you have to set aside a certain amount of land to protect trees, that's going to drive up development costs, and that's going to discourage development in the city of Charlotte. With that, I'd like to turn to our next portion of the meeting, which is our evaluation. And so please join me in welcoming our general evaluator, Toastmaster David.
Great. My role as general evaluator is to evaluate the meeting as a whole, which I'll do later on, and then also to introduce our evaluators. That's part of Toastmasters, is every speaker has an evaluator, give them feedback on the high points of their speech and room for improvement. Now, I just wanted to point out that tonight, Dr. Eric did a wedding toast, and that's actually part of our Pathways project. But the reason you're here is to be able to do important things like that, a wedding toast or an unfortunate eulogy. So if that ever comes up, you can let one of the officers know, and we'll try to fit you in so you can practice it here, because I think that's more important than anything, is the real life thing. So whenever you come across something like that, just let us know and we'll fit you in to give a speech for that. And before I introduce the evaluators, I want to remind them that the word is effulgence. Make sure you guys say the word of the J, effulgence, because I can't put it in anywhere. And we're going to start with John Capello, who's going to evaluate Reggie. So please welcome Toastmaster John. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Toastmaster David. I have the distinct pleasure of evaluating Reginald this evening. And you may always hear me say things about icebreakers and how they're special. And I think it's important to highlight that a lot of people come in here with a plan. They all have a strategy. They want to speak better, but until you take action, does it become real? And you did that today. You came up here and took action. So that alone is a reason to celebrate. Your speech was entitled, Keep Pushing Forward. I hope your inner pride is beaming with effulgence. I can say that I identify with you in the sense that I played a little ball myself, probably not as well as you did, but many of the things, and I think that we learned in that sport, I think carry forward in life, sports in general. I'm going to try to evaluate in terms of content and verbal and some nonverbal, other things we always look at here at Toastmasters. Let's first talk about your content, okay? The key part of an icebreaker, the easy part, I think, is that you get to tell your story. And stories are very useful when you're presenting always. And when you're able to give your story, some of the key aspects of that is being vulnerable and being genuine and being real. And you were all those things. We learned about how you grew up being the youngest of 13 kids, your attachment with your father, and some of the tribes and tribulations that you had. And obviously all challenges that we've all probably experienced in our life. So we all probably resonated very well with that. So in terms of content, I loved how you really tied it back at the end with that challenge of keep pushing forward. I'm big about inspiration, and it very much resonated with me, and I think with everyone here. Some of the verbal things. I think you started a little bit low in terms of your volume, but then you kind of gradually, I think as your confidence picked up, so did your volume. So initially it was a little bit lower, but as I was standing back there, the projection started to increase as you went on. Then non-verbally, I thought you had pretty good stage presence. You did utilize the full space here. And I think that you had good eye contact overall. A few things, could I have said in terms of improvement? Maybe you could have slowed your pacing, both verbally as well as physically. Like sometimes if you pace too fast, it can be distracting, but just having a nice, more gentle pacing would improve things. And maybe insert a few strategic pauses. But overall, those are things you're going to learn here at Toastmasters. So I would like to highlight kind of utilizing a football analogy, something, how scouts sometimes they detect an athlete that has that genuine raw skills, and they're like, that person's going to be a ball player. I'm telling you, I see the same thing in you as it pertains to being a speaker. I want to be able to fast forward a few years from now and say, I saw Reginald Harris give his first speech. I saw something in him. So I have one challenge for you, sir. Prove me right. David.
Thank you. And next up is our president who's doing two roles tonight. He's going to evaluate Leon. So please welcome Toastmaster Elvis. Don't forget to use the word of the day that you picked.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Good evening again, fellow Toastmasters and guests. And thank you, Leon, for such a wonderful speech. If I had to pick words to describe it, it would be inspiring and engaging. I like to focus a little bit on the organization of your speech as your icebreaker. You started with a rhetorical question and immediately went on and engaged the audience with raise your hand, right? And that is something that allowed me to immediately focus on the speaker, and you did that tonight. Then you went on with explaining what your journey, or what the focus of your speech was going to be, and immediately started your journey and took us all the way from your college experience, the health conditions of your mom, finishing, not realizing what you were going to do in life after some of the uncertainties, going into traveling. I went to all of those trips with you, to the Machu Picchu, to Panama, to Ecuador. You took us all the way through your journey and then brought us back into real life again and deciding what you wanted to do through your life coaching, and finally ended up very powerfully with your 3 calls to action. I would have to say, if there's something that maybe could be improved and that you may want to work on, probably would be your emotions. There were several things in your story, like what happened when your mom had her last breath, and your uncertainties and some of those situations that were not completely expressed during your speech. Probably you want to tap a little bit more into emotions. The other thing that I would also like to mention is you were very comfortable. Your stage presence and your comfort level as a speaker is really high, but you were in a flat tone, at a flat level all the time. And there were very small pauses. So one of the things that probably I would like to suggest that probably would challenge you on your next speech will be to introduce some vocal variety. Maybe raise up a little bit, slow, depending on the situations and how you're moving through your story. All in all, I like your hand gestures, your audience, your stage movement, your awareness of the audience, I should rather say, and your comfort level. Your delivery was fantastic for your icebreaker. It doesn't even feel like an icebreaker. I would like to congratulate you for that. And I would like to finish saying that your speech enlightened us with effulgence. We'd like to hear your next speech next time. Back to you, Mr. General Lavie.
Thank you, Elvis. And our third speaker, Eric, is going to be evaluated by Toastmaster Stewart. So please welcome Stewart.
Thank you, David. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honoured guests. Sorry, I should say honourable guests. It's a habit I'm trying to change. I have the pleasure of evaluating Eric this evening. Eric, I think everyone here would agree that your speech will be very well received. I fully expect that tears all round will be the case at the wedding. You hit all of the most important points of a father of the bride speech. You present it in a very clear and structured format, and it follows a traditional father of the bride speech format, which I think is very important. Injection of humor is certainly something that you excel at. For example, your acknowledgement of the pets who couldn't be there, the dating app for the in-laws. And I noticed that you tweaked the list of the dating apps a little bit from last week. And I actually like the list that you used last week a little bit better. I think you mispronounced one of the names of them, and that added a little bit of humor for me anyway. The mention of Wayne Gretzky, all really excellent points, and we just encourage you to use humor wherever you feel appropriate. It's always something you're very good at. When you explained the instructions for Adam, and you went into the imagery of walking as your daughter in the oversized cowboy boots, you could really kind of try and put yourself there, and you could see that image, and you kind of got your perspective of that memory with Caitlin. You went on to thank your wife Judy for her hard work on the wedding, which I think is very important. And you also made sure to include names of other people who were important in Caitlin's life. And I think that's critical to honour them and the importance that they hold in her life. And I thought you also gave a very sincere and lovely description of Adam, which again, I think is very critical. After introducing the quote from the house that you had walked through, I thought it was excellent where you mentioned that, you know, the people that you're with, the people that are beside you are what's important, because you will experience bumpy times in life. And it's always difficult, I feel like, in a wedding speech to express that, you know, life isn't always roses, marriage isn't always roses, and you have to work through things, and it's important that you work together. And I think you did a good job of kind of balancing that aspect of it without coming across as overly foreboding or negative. Really, the only potential room for improvement, I would say, is that when you spoke here, you stood at a lectern and you were fairly stationary here most of the time. Typically at weddings, from my experience anyway, you see people give these speeches in two ways. They stand up behind their seat from the table where they've been eating, or they go up to like a dance floor or a stage and they kind of walk around and kind of engage the audience and point at different members in the audience. And I feel like the latter really exudes effulgence. And if you can do that, if the space allows for that, I would encourage that. Overall, excellent gestures, volume, intonation was excellent. You appeared very comfortable as always. Beautiful speech. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you, Toastmaster Stewart. And can I get a timers report for our evaluators? Thank you, Toastmaster Allen.
Thank you. All right, John, your evaluation was 3 minutes and 5 seconds. Elvis, yours was 4 minutes and 18 seconds. And Stuart, yours was, oh my God, you all are sitting together. That's too funny. Yours was 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Thank you.
It's the evaluators table. Just a quick note, Elvis went over in time. I had joined about 3 years ago and I was an evaluator, and John was actually the timer. I don't know if you remember, he's sitting over here, and I had to give an evaluation and I ran out of material like 30 seconds in. I was done and I'm looking at John just sweating like, you know, I want him to hurry up the timer. I was so humiliated that my perspective was I failed and I ended up quitting. I quit for about 9 months because of something so silly about the time. So my point is, don't worry about the time, the timer. It's just a guide for you. So you're here to be in a supportive group. Never give up or quit for silly things, because it's all mental. It's all inside of you. It's not reality. Now, part of my role tonight is just to evaluate the meeting as a whole. And tonight we have 19 people in person. I think that's the most we've had since we've gone back to hybrid. So next week we will have a 5th table. We have about 10 tables back there. We won't run out of space. That's my only feedback, is to have more space for everybody and for everybody to keep coming and bringing guests and to join. I think we had somebody else join tonight, or she's in the process of joining. So the club is coming back. Originally when we went hybrid, it was just me, and it was me and one other. Then it was me and Eric, or me and, you know, Jamie, and then Stuart showed up, and eventually we just started snowballing into what it is. So we had a great turnout. And just think about, you all have the agenda on the tables. That's the script for the Toastmaster, which is what Jamie is doing. So if anybody wants to be Toastmaster next week, you should sign up tonight and let one of us know so we can put you in the system, or you can put yourself in the system. But with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Jamie.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. We have a hand? Oh, grammarian's report. All right, we'll have the grammarian's report.
Sorry, I'm going to be brief. So overall, everybody did very well. And I just used one of my favorite filler words, but everybody did really well at not using filler words. I couldn't pick I only picked a few. So congratulations to everyone. There were a few ums and ahs, very few. And some of us used the word of the day. So congratulations to all of the speakers who used the word of the day tonight. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you to all of our speakers and to all of our facilitators tonight. Hopefully you found tonight's theme informative. Again, my goal was just to educate, not to advocate one way or the other. If you're interested in learning more about the Unified Development Ordinance, or UDO, I would encourage you to check out the Charlotte Observer or the Charlotte Ledger. Both had excellent coverage of this topic, I think unbiased coverage. You can also check out the University of North Carolina Charlotte's Urban Institute. It has an amazing set of resources, not only around Charlotte specific UDO, but development and planning in general, which I find fascinating topic. Those of you who are particularly adventurous or just looking for a strong sleeping aid can find the 650-page UDO document on the university or on the City of Charlotte's website. But most importantly, what I would encourage all of you to do is stay engaged, right? It's through lively debate, respectful debate, but sharing our opinions that we will be able to build a City of Charlotte that will work for all of us. So with that, I will end the meeting. Thank you all, and I will turn it back to our president.
Thank you so much. Another round of applause to our formidable Can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
No, maybe turn it on. Okay. I would like to recognize our icebreaker speakers tonight. Reggie, let's give him a round of applause. Congratulations. And Leon White. And Heather, our newest member, please come over. And if there's no officers' announcements, I would like to give this meeting adjourned, and I'll see you all next week. Oh, actually, in 2 weeks, I'll be out of town for 2 weeks. So I'll see you in around 3 weeks.